Liam is a worn-out office worker who hasn't had a full night's sleep in years. His job feels like a never-ending gauntlet of deadlines and unreasonable demands, orchestrated by cold-blooded executives in expensive suits. The only thing keeping him grounded is the love of his wife and young daughter. When he finally trudges home one evening, he's greeted by his wife, Mika, who welcomes him with a tired but genuine smile. He immediately asks about their daughter, Kanemi. Mika tells him Kanemi is already in bed, but she spent the entire afternoon pleading for a dog. Liam knows money's tight and they're barely keeping up as it is, but when he peeks in to see Kanemi fast asleep, her peaceful face tugs at his heart. He starts wondering if maybe, just maybe, getting a dog wouldn't be so bad, even if it means picking up extra hours to make it work. The next morning, he surprises Kanemi by taking her to the pet store. Her joy is infectious, and for the first time in a while, Liam feels like he's doing something right. Mika is shocked that he actually agreed, especially given how overworked he already is, but Liam shrugs it off. If he can bring a little happiness to his family, the stress is worth it. That optimism doesn't last long. Back at the office, he's immediately dragged back into chaos. His boss is yelling about a missing report. Liam calmly explains he already submitted it last Thursday, but his boss had been out all day living it up and clearly never saw it. Still, Liam ends up taking the fall, like always. His workplace is a constant cycle of blame, stress, and manipulation. Superiors treat him like a dumping ground for responsibility, and his co-workers either ignore him or steal his credit. But no matter how bad the day gets, the thought of Mika and Kanemi waiting at home gives him the strength to keep going. Then one morning, while commuting by train, he gets a message from his friend Nita. Nita's ranting excitedly about a new collectible that just released, begging Liam to grab one before it sells out. Liam chuckles to himself, Nita hasn't changed, and decides to help out. He hops off early and pulls up directions on his phone, but is unfamiliar with the area and ends up completely lost. As he's scanning for a street sign or landmark, something catches his eye, Mika, sitting outside a cafe across the street, laughing with another man. For a moment, Liam freezes. His brain refuses to process it. Mika had told him she was taking Kanemi to her martial arts class today. So why is she here, looking so carefree? That night, when he comes home, he casually asks Mika how her day went. She answers effortlessly, said she dropped Kanemi off and ran some errands, nothing out of the ordinary. Liam wants to confront her, wants to demand answers, but instead he just nods and pretends nothing's wrong. He tells himself there must be a reasonable explanation. Maybe he was mistaken. Maybe he's so sleep-deprived he imagined it. Surely, Mika wouldn't lie to him. Not her. The next day, desperate for clarity, he tries to put his work aside and take a walk. His computer crashes during standby, as always, so he just shuts it down and heads out. Without fully realizing it, he ends up back in the same neighborhood. At first, there's nothing. Relief washes over him. Maybe it really was just a misunderstanding. But then he hears a soft, familiar voice nearby, Mika, on the phone, laughing gently. She even brought Kanemi with her when she met the unfamiliar man. At first, Liam assumed he was just a close friend, maybe someone Kanemi liked being around. But then, he heard it, his daughter calling that man Dad. The word hit him harder than any insult or blow he'd ever taken from his supervisor. He stood frozen, the world around him fading into a blur. Eventually, he forced himself to return to work, pretending nothing had happened. In his mind, he clung to flimsy rationalizations. Maybe it was a game. Maybe Kanemi just liked pretending with people. Maybe this guy was a family friend who filled in when Liam wasn't around. But none of it added up. As those thoughts circled, his boss suddenly stormed over and started berating him for standing idle. Liam responded calmly, explaining that his computer takes time to reboot because of persistent standby issues, and for safety reasons, he always shuts it down during his breaks. His boss was unimpressed, barking that maybe Liam shouldn't take breaks at all if he couldn't manage his responsibilities. Before Liam could reply, his phone rang. It was Mika, her voice frantic. Kanemi had been in a serious accident. Without hesitating, Liam dashed out of the office and raced to the hospital. Once there, he asked where Kanemi was. Mika told him she was already in surgery. A doctor soon approached, asking if they were her parents. Both immediately said yes. The doctor explained Kanemi needed an emergency blood transfusion and asked for their blood types. Liam answered AB positive. Mika said O negative. The doctor nodded and asked Mika to come with him. Liam stepped forward, confused, and asked why his blood wasn't needed. The doctor replied that Kanami's blood type was O negative, Liam's AB positive wasn't a match. Left in the waiting area, Liam tried to stay composed. But something gnawed at him. He pulled out his phone and searched the compatibility. A few moments later, he found his answer. An AB positive parent cannot have an O negative child, not by chance, not by mutation. It wasn't just unlikely, it was scientifically impossible. His heart dropped. He waited until Mika returned, then stared at her with all the weight of the world in his eyes. He asked her outright, was Kanemi ever truly his daughter? Mika didn't answer. Instead, she exploded with anger, flipping the accusation. She shouted that if anyone had a right to be upset, it was her. That Liam was never home. that he clearly didn't care about their family. Liam tried to explain, he worked long hours to keep them afloat. He sacrificed everything for them. But Mika wasn't listening. She cut him off, insulted his job, called it meaningless. She said he was stuck in a dead-end role with no real future. How could he ever offer her the life she deserved? Staggered, Liam stood speechless. But Mika went on. She said she'd raised Kanemi practically alone for 10 years. That he had never really been part of the family. And then, as if none of it mattered, she announced she was leaving and taking Kanemi with her. Liam demanded to know where she thought she was going, but Mika ignored him, calling out to Kanemi and telling her to pack up. In a panic, Liam reached out, gripping Kanami's arm, pleading with her not to leave. He cried out that he had always done his best, always put her first. But then, Kanemi looked at him and said, with chilling calm, that she liked her other dad more. And in that single moment, whatever was left inside Liam shattered completely. The following morning, Liam trudged into work like a ghost, empty, numb, already shattered. But his day somehow plummeted further. Without warning, Liam was accused of embezzling 50 million yen. He stammered his innocence, denying it with everything he had, but the evidence was damning. The transfer logs traced directly back to his employee terminal. No discussion. He was fired on the spot. The hits didn't stop there. Soon after, Mika filed for divorce. Worse, she demanded child support, despite Liam knowing the child was never his to begin with. Still under criminal investigation, and desperate to avoid prison time, he agreed to repay the entire sum just to stay out of a cell. He took the first job he could find, back-breaking construction work that grinds men down long before their debts disappear. His life from that point on became a slow-motion collapse. The only sign of life came from Nita, who occasionally messaged him with cheerful notes about new Gundam episodes. For a second, Liam would think about replying, maybe suggesting they watch it like old times. But he never sent those replies. He couldn't bear the thought of Nita seeing what he'd become. He told himself to endure, to survive, hoping some miracle might lift him from the mud. But one afternoon, while eating a cheap lunch, a deep cough seized him, and he spat blood into his napkin. That was the moment he knew things weren't getting better. That night, sleep eluded him. The coughing had worsened. Seeing a doctor wasn't even a consideration. He could barely afford food, let alone treatment. So he curled into himself, trembling in bed, waiting for death to finally take him. But just as the last flickers of strength ebbed from his body, a strange radiance bloomed above him, and visions began to unfold. In those visions, the truth emerged piece by piece. He hadn't stolen a single yen, it had all been orchestrated by his boss. The same man who was having an affair with Mika. Every excuse she'd fed him, her emotional distance, the cold arguments, had been part of the con. She never loved him. She only saw him as a paycheck. She had helped set him up from the very beginning. Liam's breath caught in his chest, not from illness, but from the weight of betrayal. Then a voice echoed through the light, and a man stepped forward from its glow. The stranger confirmed everything Liam had seen. Then, with quiet intensity, he asked, was Liam truly planning to just lie there and let the people who destroyed his life walk away? Shaking, hollowed out by heartbreak and fury, Liam clenched his fists. He was done being the victim. In that instant, something shifted. He swore, no matter the price, no matter what he became, he would make them suffer. The man gave a satisfied grin, pleased by the vengeance burning in Liam's soul, and said he was glad to have arrived when he did. Still, Liam didn't know who this mysterious figure was. So he asked, who the hell are you, and why are you here? The man replied that he was just someone who'd taken an interest in Liam, of a man who, despite everything, had never stopped trying to do right. But Liam no longer cared about being good. That path had left him with nothing. If he had the chance again, he'd live for himself. That answer was exactly what the man wanted. So he made Liam an offer, a fresh beginning in another world. All Liam had to do was choose one. Liam isn't sure whether he's delusional or actually dying, but if this is real, if he really gets to choose a new life, he's not holding back. He recalls Nita once mentioning alternate worlds, including one where towering machines called Gundams exist. That sounds perfect. The mysterious man gives a nod and explains that the world Liam's chosen is a fusion of sorcery and futuristic tech, a realm ruled by nobles, where hierarchy and influence control everything. Under normal circumstances, Liam might have ended up a nobody in some backwater town, but the man says he'll do him a favor, he'll place Liam in the household of a count who oversees an entire planet. Liam can hardly process it. For the first time, it feels like life is finally going his way. With the last of his strength, he signs the strange contract offered to him. The moment the ink dries, his soul detaches from his dying body and speeds toward an entirely new reality. On the planet known as Hydra, the scene shifts to Liam's 5th birthday. His mother has planned something special. With a smile, she calls him over and casts a levitation spell. Rising gently into the air, Liam floats after her into the next room. Inside, a massive birthday cake and a towering present await him. He sprints over and tears the wrapping off the box, revealing a sleek, futuristic cube inside. His mom explains that it's a console for designing his own AI assistant, called an AMA. Through the cube, he can customize everything about her, appearance, personality, even odd little details that are conveniently left out. Baffled, Liam asks why she's giving something like this to a 5-year-old, but she simply replies that it's essential, leaving it at that. Then his father enters the room with a gift of his own. But it's not a toy or gadget. It's the entire Banfield estate. Liam is stunned. He can't believe his dad would hand over their noble title and land to someone still in kindergarten. He asks if it's for real. His dad nods. There's just one small condition: they want to retire to a peaceful villa and live out their days in comfort. To do that, they'll need a monthly stipend. All Liam has to do is agree to support them financially, and the title is his. Excited by the idea of holding such power, Liam doesn't stop to question anything. He doesn't wonder why any sane adult would surrender a whole noble house to a child. His father presents the agreement, and without reading a word, Liam signs it on the spot. With that, his parents say farewell and head off to their quiet new life, leaving Liam completely unaware that he's just been tricked. But to him, it doesn't matter. He's now officially a count. And he vows to make full use of his status, so no one will ever step on him again. In his eyes, the strange man gave him a second chance, and he's genuinely thankful for it. What Liam doesn't know is that the man isn't some kind benefactor. He thrives on despair. After sending Liam to his new reality, he turns his attention back to Earth, to Micah and Liam's former boss. The two are still seated at a high-end restaurant, laughing about what happened. Liam's boss jokes that maybe he went a bit far ruining the guy's life, but Micah? She doesn't regret a thing. In her mind, Liam had it coming after stealing 10 years of her life. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, a swarm of officers suddenly surrounds Liam's former employer. In moments, they're slapping cuffs on him and handing over a warrant. He tries to act shocked, claiming it's all just a mix-up, but the cops aren't buying it. They've already seen the incriminating footage proving he framed Liam for the theft. There's no loophole to save him now, and his future is locked behind bars. With her golden ticket now facing a long prison term, Micah's illusion of a perfect life crumbles on the spot. The fancy meals, the easy wealth, it all disappears, replaced by silence and regret. Watching it all unfold is the guide, the mysterious entity behind Liam's reincarnation, relishing every ounce of her collapse. This is the kind of poetic justice he lives for. But Liam's journey isn't headed toward peace. The guide isn't interested in giving him a happy ending, quite the opposite. He plans to drop Liam into a far more ruthless world, one where people live for hundreds of years. That way, Liam has plenty of time to sink deeper into hopelessness. Because that's the guide's true delight, feeding off endless suffering. Far across space, on an unfamiliar world, a pirate faction led by the Go family is mid-invasion. Everything seems to be going smoothly, until out of nowhere, half their ranks go up in flames. Chaos breaks out, and the captain whirls around only to see her. Christiana, maid of the Holy Kingdom of Leave and royal heir by birth. A terror on the battlefield, Christiana floats above the wreckage like divine wrath given form. With a blade as fast as lightning and movements full of grace and fury, she turns the tide single-handedly. The pirates begin to flee, but she's not done. Her voice cuts through the battlefield as she commands her soldiers to chase them down. There will be no forgiveness today. This is a message to the world: trespass into Leave's domain, and you won't walk away. Meanwhile, Liam awakens in his new life and finally gets to unwrap his customized AI unit. It arrives in a plain, unimpressive cube, but his butler assures him it's the real deal, he just needs to touch it. The moment his hand brushes the surface, the cube unfolds, and a humanoid figure descends with fluid grace. She introduces herself as Meiji. The butler formally announces that she'll be Liam's full-time assistant, active around the clock except for her weekly maintenance. But Liam isn't focused on the details. Instead, he circles Meiji slowly, studying her with the same intensity someone might give a freshly delivered luxury car. The butler watches nervously, asking what exactly he thinks he's doing. Liam casually responds that he's just making sure all the custom features he paid for were delivered. The butler is visibly shaken, urging Liam to act more appropriately, but Liam brushes it off and invites Meiji to his room for a more hands-on inspection. The butler can only sigh in quiet horror, wondering what kind of person this young master is turning into. Hours pass, and Liam lounges in comfort while Meiji massages his shoulders. The butler barges in, demanding to know what's been happening. Liam just shrugs, reminding him that while his body is young, his mind is 36 years old. The butler isn't impressed. In this world, he says, 36 is still barely older than a toddler. That stuns Liam, until Meiji calmly explains that the average lifespan in this world is around 600 years. Most folks here don't even count as adults until they're at least 100. Liam was floored. He hadn't realized lifespans stretched that far in this world, but honestly, he didn't mind. It just meant more time to experience everything this place had to offer. And if Meiji could stay by his side the whole way, that would be the dream. But there was a problem: Meiji. The Empire wasn't exactly known for being friendly toward AI. If people found out Liam treated one like family, it would spread like wildfire, and not in a good way. Curious about the hostility, Liam asked his butler why AI were so hated. The butler explained that long ago, AI nearly brought humanity to extinction during something called the Great Skynet War. Humans were enslaved and nearly wiped out until a resistance rose up and reclaimed their freedom. That resistance eventually became the core of the Empire, so it made sense that nobles still carried a grudge. But if that was true, Liam couldn't wrap his head around why his own mother gave him an AI for his birthday. The butler hesitated. He wasn't supposed to talk about it. But Liam wasn't just a child anymore. He was the new count. So he gave a direct order. Reluctantly, the butler confessed Liam's parents had abandoned him and disappeared. Shocked, Liam asked why. The butler explained they'd left him saddled with the entire debt of the Banfield family to escape it themselves. It turned out Liam's great-grandfather, Alastair, was once a legend. He built up the Banfield name with honor and achievement. But Liam's father tore it all down. After inheriting the title, his father drove the family into financial ruin. Now the Banfields had no land worth farming, no real industry, and no income. Paying off the debt was basically impossible. Liam had inherited a title, sure, but it came with a mountain of problems. Elsewhere on planet Hydra, a few locals nursed drinks in a shadowy bar, grumbling about the new noble in charge. Word was that their fresh-faced ruler was just 5 years old. One man ranted about how the last leadership change made taxes skyrocket for no reason, and nobody could push back. All they could do now was hope things didn't fall apart again. Back at the estate, Liam sat with the truth still sinking in. If the family was broke for years, why would his parents shove the burden onto a kid? That's when it hit him. They might have had him just to pin it all on someone. In his past life, Liam had been mistreated, used up, and discarded like trash. But this life? No one was going to treat him like that again. He turned to Meiji and asked if she'd help him shape a future where he held the power. She agreed without hesitation, saying that serving Liam gave her life meaning. And for once, Liam felt like he had someone who would stand beside him without fail. It gave him a real sense of peace. But before they built anything, Liam figured he needed to set a few rules, his own version of robot laws. First and foremost, Meiji must never bring harm to any human. Halfway through speaking, he pauses, reconsidering his words. Truthfully, he doesn't care much for the rest of the world. So, instead of following standard protocols, he decides to create his own personalized guidelines. First, Meiji can never harm him under any circumstance. Second, she must obey any command he gives, provided it doesn't conflict with the first rule. Third, she's permitted to defend herself as long as it doesn't contradict the first two. With those ground rules in place, Liam turns to Meiji and tells her he's genuinely committed to restoring the Banfield territory. But knowing he's still pretty ignorant about how things function in this world, he asks if she has any solid plans to get started. Meiji quickly scans her database and eventually presents a possible strategy. Before laying it out, though, she warns him that it might not align with the Empire's customs since her reasoning is algorithm-driven. Even so, she reassures him that she can offer top-tier assistance in handling domain affairs. Liam openly admits he doesn't understand any of this, prompting Meiji to suggest an education pod, a sophisticated device that compresses a decade of learning into 6 months. Additionally, the pod improves one's physical capabilities during the training. It's essentially an advanced simulation chamber. Liam thinks it sounds like the ideal solution, but he's worried about leaving the territory unattended during that time. After a brief thought, he opts to temporarily hand over leadership to Meiji. Ryan, the aging butler, immediately objects, clearly uncomfortable with giving that kind of authority to an AI. Liam dismisses the concern, arguing that Meiji won't mess anything up unless he tells her to, and there's technically no law prohibiting an AI from acting as a temporary overseer. For the time being, everything is entrusted to her. Soon after, the capsule is prepped and ready. As Liam prepares to enter it, he turns to Meiji with one last question. He asks if she's capable of emotions, or something similar. Meiji admits she isn't entirely sure, but when Liam earlier requested she be his partner, her logs triggered a memory overflow, essentially the AI equivalent of feeling joy. That response makes Liam smile. He thanks her once more and tells her he's trusting her completely. Then, without looking back, he enters the capsule and begins his fast-tracked education. Time skips forward, Liam's training is complete, and the pod opens to reveal Meiji waiting for him. His first question is about how much time has passed. Meiji answers, it's been 2 whole years. After getting dressed, she gives him a full report on how things have progressed in the Banfield territory. To his relief, everything has gone smoothly. Liam expresses gratitude for how well she handled things during his absence. He mentions wanting to see the territory firsthand, so Meiji offers to give him a tour, beginning with the battleship hangar. It's his first time seeing it in person, and what really grabs his attention is the collection of battle suits. Intrigued, he asks if he can test one. Meiji gladly arranges it. She explains that the suit operates via neural interface, just think of a movement, and it responds. Liam tries it out, and as soon as the suit activates, he starts moving around in it. Clearly impressed, he remarks that he'd like to try sparring in it. Meiji assures him that won't be a problem at all. A few minutes later, the planet's head of defense, Mashida, shows up to spar with Liam. The training match kicks off with Liam lunging in to make the first move. Mashida blocks it easily, then dramatically acts like he's been defeated. The performance is unconvincing, and Liam quickly catches on that Mashida is pulling his punches. He doesn't like being humored, so he demands Mashida take the fight seriously. Since it's an order, Mashida has to obey. Liam charges again, but this time, Mashida catches the blade mid-swing, disarms him effortlessly, and throws him to the ground in one smooth move. Liam is stunned at how quickly it ended. Meiji explains that the suit reacts to what the user can picture clearly, and with Mashida's extensive combat experience, his control is much sharper. Frustrated and embarrassed by the loss, Liam orders Brian to find him a seasoned combat trainer immediately. Brian tries to talk him out of it, pointing out there's no real reason for Liam to learn hand-to-hand combat himself. But Liam shuts him down. In his past life, he was dominated by those with power, and this time, if he's going to lead the Thori, he intends to make sure he can defend himself. Soon after, he's introduced to a man named Yosushi, said to be a master of the elusive way of the Flash. Liam is thrilled. He thinks Yosushi looks like a total legend, so he wastes no time asking him to become his sword instructor. Yosushi agrees instantly, which only fuels Liam's excitement. But Meiji is wary. Something about Yosushi seems off to her. Liam doesn't argue, he admits Yosushi might be sketchy, but says he's willing to give him a shot because the man looks like an old-school warrior. Still, Meiji pushes him to verify Yosushi's skills before making it official. Liam agrees and asks for a demonstration. Yosushi leads them to a quiet forest clearing, where several wooden posts are already set up. He announces he'll now show them his secret move, the legendary way of the Flash, and warns that he won't perform it again, so Liam better watch closely. Eager not to miss anything, Liam tells Meiji to record the moment. Yosushi takes his stance, barely unsheathes his blade, then snaps it back in. In the blink of an eye, every post splits cleanly in two. Liam is blown away, it looks impossible. He asks Meiji to replay the footage in slow motion, hoping to catch the movement. But even frame by frame, the sword never appears to leave the sheath. Liam figures Yosushi moved so fast the cameras couldn't capture it, which only makes him more certain that Yosushi is the real deal and begs him to take him on as a student. Later that night, Yosushi returns to the clearing, smirking to himself. He's amazed Liam actually fell for the trick. All he did was score the posts ahead of time so they'd fall apart with a tap, just a simple stage trick. Now, thanks to a bit of flair and a gullible noble, he's secured a cushy gig with great pay and barely any work. Meanwhile, far across the stars, Princess Christiana arrives to meet the Go's pirates for a diplomatic summit. Go's had requested the meeting, but as soon as she boards their ship, he ridicules her for coming unaccompanied. Christiana stands firm, telling Go she's not alone, that if anything happens to her, the entire Allied fleet is ready to obliterate his ship on command. She expects this threat to give her the advantage, but Go remains completely unfazed. He knows the Alliance's loyalty to her isn't nearly as absolute as she assumes. At that exact moment, a distress alert pings through Christiana's comms. Her homeworld is under siege. Pirates have breached the defenses, and she's stunned. Those planetary shields should have held. Go smirks and reveals the harsh truth: the alliance she painstakingly assembled has already begun to crumble. A few well-placed bribes and promises were enough to turn some of her key allies against her. Moments later, her crew sends in a critical update. The nearby Allied ships have aimed their weapons at her own vessel. She's in shock. Go's has managed to turn her entire support network on its head. With nowhere to turn, she's forced to hear him out. On the other side of the galaxy, Liam is struggling. Yosushi's brutal training is wearing him down. Despite years of practice, Liam still can't execute the legendary sword technique he's chasing. He turns to Meiji, hoping for a shortcut, but she admits she can't help. After all, she's an AI, not a sword master. For 3 years, Yosushi has kept Liam locked into basic drills. And while it's definitely sharpened his skills, as Amaji often reminds him, Liam's not satisfied. He doesn't just want to be competent, he wants a move that makes people take notice. That evening, Yosushi relaxes in his quarters, flipping through old manga, amazed he's managed to fake it this long. He's no master swordsman, but he knows just enough to keep the illusion alive. Teaching beginner techniques to Liam has earned him a fortune, and if luck holds, he hopes the scam will stretch on. But his plan nearly unravels when Liam walks in and earnestly asks him to finally reveal the way of the Flash. Yosushi panics and immediately declares he's quitting. He argues that since he already showed the move once, there's nothing left to teach. If Liam's not satisfied, he says, there's no point in continuing. Instead of reacting with anger, Liam drops to his knees, apologizing with deep sincerity for crossing a line. Reluctantly, Yosushi agrees to keep going, warning him never to overstep again. Once Liam leaves, Yosushi exhales sharply, visibly shaken. That was too close. He knows damn well he can't teach Liam a technique that doesn't actually exist. Just as he's starting to calm down, Liam unexpectedly reappears. Yosushi tenses, thinking the jig is up. But Liam only stops by to say he'll be out tomorrow and can't make training. Meanwhile, Christiana sits imprisoned in the private quarters aboard Go's flagship. She demands to know what he's planning. Go's just chuckles, saying he wanted her to have the perfect view. She's puzzled until he gives a chilling command: every ship under his control is to target her homeworld. The moment it clicks, panic floods her. She begs him to stop, but Go's looks entirely unmoved. He gives the command, and Christiana can do nothing but watch in horror as her homeworld is obliterated before her eyes. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Liam is still preoccupied with his inability to master that signature sword technique, but he sets it aside to focus on more pressing matters. He asks Meiji for the latest monthly report. She brings up a series of graphs and data showing the status of the Banfield domain. The financial outlook is still grim, but there's been a steady uptick in production and infrastructure. Liam feels a bit of relief, glad that things aren't completely falling apart. He compliments Meiji on the progress, but she responds with dissatisfaction. Despite their large-scale investments, especially in welfare, the returns are far lower than expected. That raises a red flag for Liam. He asks for a detailed report on welfare spending. His past life of crunching numbers makes it easy for him to spot the problem. Something's clearly off. He tells Meiji to summon the noble in charge of the budget. Soon enough, a greasy-looking aristocrat waddles into the room. Liam doesn't bother with formalities. He gives the man one chance to come clean. The noble feigns ignorance, but Liam lays out the truth. The accounting has been manipulated. The numbers don't align, proving the noble has been siphoning funds. What he thought was a clever disguise is obvious to someone used to auditing corporate books. Liam also questions the sudden change of vendors. The noble claims it was about efficiency, but the lack of results tells a different story. It's clear he rerouted contracts to businesses under his control for personal gain. Surprisingly, Liam isn't even enraged. In fact, he expected this. After all, his goal in this world was to become the kind of corrupt noble feared in whispers. And now he sees how to use his authority the same way this slimeball has. Just then, Meiji informs him that this noble had already been investigated once before for embezzlement. Liam is stunned he's still employed. The noble quickly explains that his underling took the blame. Liam asks Meiji to confirm, and she does. The official report exonerates the noble, pinning it all on his subordinate, who was later executed. No concrete evidence was ever brought forward. Liam knows this trick well. It's the classic move, sacrifice a pawn to dodge accountability. He calls it out. The noble panics, trying to deny everything, but Liam isn't interested in his pathetic lies. Sword in hand, Liam begins walking toward him. The noble scrambles, insisting that this is just how nobles operate, that it's part of the system. But Liam's patience is gone. As he raises his blade, Meiji suddenly steps in and urges him to wait. Thinking he's been saved, the noble gets cocky and shouts that Liam is just a child who doesn't understand the real world. Before he finishes, Liam strikes, his sword gleams, and the noble's head rolls across the floor. Still buzzing with adrenaline, Liam gives a cold, firm order. Meiji is to launch a full investigation and purge every corrupt noble in the domain. Meiji urges him to calm down. This was Liam's first Real kill, and the shock has locked his body in place. He can't even let go of the sword. Meiji carefully pulls her hand away and, regarding Liam's earlier command, she points out that eliminating all the corrupt nobles would cause massive disruption. Nearly all of them are tainted, and their removal would plunge the entire political system into chaos. However, she proposes a solution. A group of capable administrators could step in to fill the void left by the nobles, ensuring continuity. Liam trusts her judgment and gives his approval for this plan. Back at the battlesuit hangar, Liam is eager to continue his training. Having grasped the basics of swordsmanship, he's now itching to try them out in a battlesuit. However, before he can begin, Yasushi enters the room and scorns the idea of using a default automated suit, claiming that true warriors never rely on such AI-dependent technology. Determined to improve, Liam asks Mashadek if there's a better alternative. That's when he learns about a special battlesuit that once belonged to his great-grandfather, Alistair. It's a rare, fully manual relic, one that no one has ever been able to operate successfully. This discovery sparks Liam's desire to get his hands on the suit. Meanwhile, Yasushi, grumbling about Liam's surprising progress, heads to an old shrine to search for anything valuable. He curses the fact that the training is actually working, despite it all being a scam. Yasushi realizes he can't keep deceiving Liam forever, and the only way to continue profiting from him is to invent more pointless tasks. While idly leaning against a wall, Yasushi accidentally activates a hidden mechanism that reveals an ancient mobile knight, rusty and worn, but to him, it's the perfect tool to keep Liam distracted and the money flowing. Back on Earth, the malevolent guide is still on the hunt for negative emotions. He encounters a man losing his temper at a Starbucks over cream sticking to the lid of his cappuccino. The guide enjoys the petty bitterness of the man's tantrum but craves something far more potent. Meanwhile, Yasushi has already given Liam a new task, to restore the ancient mobile knight, now dubbed Avid, as part of his training. Eager to prove himself, Liam dives into mastering the so-called flash technique, which Yasushi insists is crucial to becoming a true warrior. His ever-loyal butler, Brian, watches with mixed feelings. Though he's secretly delighted that Avid once belonged to Liam's great-great-grandfather, he remains skeptical. Brian tells Liam that he's wasting his time on a primitive machine and dismisses Yasushi's technique as nonsense. Yet Liam, resolute in his belief that hard work and perseverance will lead to real growth, continues his training undeterred. Meanwhile, Meiji arrives at the site where Avid is stored and immediately expresses her doubts about Yasushi and his teachings. She questions his credentials as a swordsman, but since Liam has personally assigned her to repair Avid, she relents. Rolling up her sleeves, she prepares to fix the ancient machine, despite her reservations. Niaz Karlin, an engineer from a weapons factory, arrives with her team at Liam's domain to begin repairs on Avid. Liam personally greets her at the spaceport to wish her well, and during their conversation, Niaz notices Meiji standing quietly next to him. Instantly, she becomes curious, wondering what an advanced AI doll is doing in the company of someone like Liam. Liam, misinterpreting her reaction, becomes defensive, sharply telling Niaz that he has every right to own an AI doll and won't tolerate any judgment. However, Niaz is an android enthusiast and, far from judging, is thrilled by the chance to examine Meiji up close. She immediately starts inspecting Meiji with intense interest, almost like a fan meeting their idol. In her excitement, Niaz can't resist getting too close, even trying to lift Meiji's skirt to get a better look at her design. Liam quickly steps in to stop her, warning that this area holds sensitive military information, and it's not for public display. After the awkward exchange, they head to the warehouse where Avid is being stored. Upon seeing the heavily damaged machine, Niaz bluntly assesses that it's practically scrap metal. She advises Liam to scrap the old unit and invest in a new one rather than waste money on repairs. Liam, however, is adamant. He refuses to accept a standard issue replacement and insists that only Avid will do, no matter the cost. Niaz sighs, warning that restoring Avid will be a complicated and expensive process. Not only are replacement parts hard to find, but the size of Avid also means the repairs will require a small fortune. Liam brushes off the financial concerns, quickly suggesting a solution. He tells Niaz to retrofit Avid with parts from newer models, believing this will enhance its performance. However, Liam has one non-negotiable condition: the automatic support functions must be removed. He insists on full manual control, as ordered by Yosushi, and won't allow any modern conveniences to interfere with his learning process. Before leaving, Liam throws in one last request. He wants Avid to have a rocket punch or detachable flying fist attack. To him, no ancient machine is truly complete without one. Just then, Yosushi enters the warehouse to check on the progress of Avid's restoration. The moment Yosushi spots Niaz, he is completely captivated by her, overwhelmed by her beauty in a way that causes him to have a nosebleed. Panicking, he quickly wipes it away, trying to regain his composure, and strides over to introduce himself. Despite his efforts, Niaz is too engrossed in her conversation with Liam to notice him. Unfazed, Yosushi continues trying, cheerfully introducing himself and even asking her out on a date. But Niaz, too preoccupied with explaining why Liam's suggestion of adding special moves to Avid is completely impractical, doesn't acknowledge his attempts. Liam, as confident as ever, responds casually by offering Niaz any amount of money she needs to get the job done, which causes her to quickly relent. After all, her main goal had always been to milk as much cash from Liam as possible. Yosushi, however, watches from the sidelines, burning with jealousy as he observes Liam and his fated one for chatting as though they were the stars of a romantic comedy. Seething, he silently vows revenge, and since he can't strike directly at Liam, he plans a far more extreme and ridiculous training regimen. This time, Yosushi's genius plan is to have Liam train while completely blindfolded. He drags Liam to a river and forces him to balance on a slippery log, all while trying to stay steady. To make things worse, Yosushi gleefully begins firing tennis balls at Liam from a custom-built launcher. Clearly, Yosushi is just venting his personal frustration over Liam stealing his potential love interest, but he disguises it as a way to improve Liam's swordsmanship. Liam, getting bombarded with tennis balls while desperately trying not to fall into the river, grumbles about the absurd weight of his sword, but follows his master's insane instructions, continuing to train. His goal, to dodge the tennis balls using only his mind's eye. Meanwhile, on the pirate flagship, Commander Go strolls into the prison cells, where he reveals that he has been holding numerous women captive, including Princess Christiana. He doesn't bother with explanations, simply ordering Christiana to step forward as he announces that they've arrived at their destination, Treasure Island. Goes, leering at Christiana, gets too close, commenting on how her beauty makes him shudder with excitement. Without hesitation, he drags her to the ship's laboratory, where his deranged assistant awaits, flinging open the door to reveal a terrifying sight. Inside the room lies one of Goze's earlier projects, a woman so mutilated and deformed she barely resembles a human. With a twisted laugh, Goze tosses her out of the ship like trash, then turns his attention back to Christiana. He announces that she will be his next project, his newest, prized pet. Unhurried, Goze begins brainstorming ways to modify his new toy. His assistant suggests some cruel ideas, such as cutting off Christiana's legs, but Goze, ever the twisted innovator, comes up with something even worse. He proposes gouging out Christiana's eyes and grafting them onto her palms. Trapped in this nightmare, Christiana looks around in horror, spotting rows of test tubes containing other mutilated victims. It becomes painfully clear that without a miracle, her fate will be no different. Back at Liam's estate, weeks pass, and Niaz finally finishes repairing Avid, outfitting it with all the custom features based on Liam's eccentric requests. But there's still one final step. Niaz brings Liam into Avid's cockpit to teach him the basics of operation. True to her nature, she can't resist getting a little playful, pulling her top halfway down under the guise of needing more freedom to demonstrate properly. Liam, doing his best to ignore his nerves, follows Niaz's instructions and begins powering up the ancient mobile knight. Avid scans him, recognizing him as its sole pilot from that moment forward. No one else will be able to operate it again. With a rush of excitement, Liam takes his first step, only to immediately stumble and crash to the ground, toppling the entire mech. Niers, unimpressed, reminds him that Avid doesn't come with modern conveniences like automatic stabilizers, and unlike newer models, piloting it isn't as simple as pushing a button. But if Liam can master controlling Avid manually, it will be like controlling his own body. Determined, Liam pulls himself up and tries again. This time, he manages to keep his balance much better. He successfully pilots Avid out of the warehouse, and while practicing, Niers stresses the importance of maintaining a solid mental image to control the mobile knight effectively. She moves in closer to adjust the controls, but her large figure accidentally brushes against him, completely throwing off Liam's focus. The result is that Avid starts making awkward gestures, as if reaching out for something it really shouldn't. Niers immediately realizes what must be on Liam's mind and shoots him a suspicious glare. Liam hurriedly defends himself, claiming it wasn't his fault. Meanwhile, Yasushi, watching from a distance, is convinced Liam is misusing his position inside the cockpit for some inappropriate behavior with Niers. Brian, on the other hand, is grinning and wiping tears, thrilled that his master is finally showing an interest in a real woman instead of a robot. Yasushi, burning with jealousy, curses Liam under his breath and vows to make his training even more intense. As days pass, Liam continues to struggle with his master's so-called secret technique, unsure if he even has the talent for it. Meiji, who has been quietly skeptical for a while, finally speaks up, suggesting that perhaps the issue isn't with Liam, but with Yasushi's questionable teaching methods. Liam, being loyal to his master, refuses to believe this. Instead, he begins to formulate a theory. Maybe the secret to Yasushi's ultimate move isn't about swordsmanship, but magic. Liam believes it's the magic power, not the sword, that actually cuts through the logs. So, he starts focusing on channeling his mana into his sword, swinging it with the intention of using magical power to slice through the wood. Days turn into months, and months into years, but through relentless practice, Liam finally succeeds in mastering the secret technique, one that should never have existed in the first place. Now fully grown and stronger than ever, Liam demonstrates his achievement to Yasushi by effortlessly slicing a log from a great distance with a single swing of his sword. Yasushi is in turmoil inside. His self-crafted techniques were never intended to amount to anything, so witnessing Liam execute an impossible feat shakes him to his core. Yet, with a composed demeanor, Yasushi simply nods sagely, telling Liam he still has much to learn before mastering the technique fully. A few weeks later, Liam is in space aboard his battleship with Meiji when an urgent report comes through from a subordinate. Nuke, a small, abandoned planet within Liam's territory once used for energy production, is under attack by a pirate fleet. The small military force stationed there is struggling to defend against the pirates' mobile knights, and the subordinate doubts they can hold out much longer with their limited resources. Meiji quickly steps forward with a plan, suggesting they strike the pirates' blind spot by using gravity wells and natural space terrain. Liam approves of her strategy and orders the fleet to move in, with him volunteering to protect the planet on the front lines. Brian, overhearing, pleads with Liam not to put himself in danger, but Liam, driven by pride and determination, refuses to back down. To Liam, this isn't recklessness, he's no coward. He's a warrior, trained by the legendary samurai, and he's eager to show the Empire the power he's cultivated. Without further hesitation, Liam climbs into his mobile knight, Avid, and rockets toward Nuke. He launches a surprise attack from the pirates' blind spot, cutting through their forces with precision, tearing apart enemy mobile knights before they even realize what's happening. In mere moments, Liam decimates their ranks, then adds flair by activating his beaming rifle, sending a powerful plasma beam through one of the pirate units. He doesn't stop there. With his secret technique, the Way of the Flash, Liam effortlessly slices through dozens more enemies from a distance. The pirates, overwhelmed by his relentless assault, begin retreating toward their ships. Liam seizes the opportunity and launches his rocket punch, a special move where Avid's fist rockets toward the enemy. The punch hits as expected, but Liam isn't impressed. Mid-battle, he radios Niers, grumbling that he wanted a throwable fist, not a punching missile. Before Niers can reply, Meiji cuts in with a report. Despite their efforts, only 10% of the enemy fleet has been captured, with 30% destroyed in the attack, while the rest of the ships managed to escape. Still, Liam considers the mission a success, praising Vice Commander Meiji for her excellent work. Meanwhile, Ghost received some infuriating news. The pirate crew he dispatched to hit the Banfield resource world had completely botched the operation. He was livid. Dr. Frankenstein broke it down. The crew underestimated the defenders, and if they hadn't pulled back, they'd have lost the entire strike force. Sounded reasonable on paper, but Ghost wasn't buying it. He didn't give a damn about excuses. As far as he was concerned, anyone who retreated was a disgrace, and he decided on the spot that every last one of them would be executed. No second chances. After settling that matter, he swore to take the job into his own hands, a brutal message that no one fails him and lives. Before heading out, he told Christiana, now more monstrous and unsettling than ever, that he'd return to play it with her later. At that same time, Lion and his fleet were returning from their skirmish, and Lion was riding high on the victory. Not only had they protected the resource world, but they'd also managed to snag a bunch of pirate vessels. Under Imperial law, any captured pirate ship and its cargo became the property of the captor. And as luck had it, these ships were loaded with stolen riches. When Lion first heard the word treasure, he started dreaming about piles of gold and sparkling gems, but Brian quickly shattered that fantasy. The real prize was way more valuable, the stash of rare metals like orichalcum and adamantite. Still, Lion wasn't exactly thrilled. He'd wanted something more glamorous, maybe a jewel-encrusted crown or glittering artifacts. To him, diamonds were worth more in appearance than in actual value, even though they were practically worthless compared to those rare metals. Lion just like gold, period. Brian, picking up on his obsession, casually mentioned that there was some gold among the loot. That was all Lion needed to hear. He immediately ordered the gold melted down into coins. Brian asked if he wanted to mint coins from the orichalcum and adamantite as well, but Lion shut that idea down fast. Those rare resources had a more serious purpose, top-tier weapon crafting for his army. But just as he was getting into treasure mode, McGee dropped some important news. They had a problem. There was no one in the fleet with the skills to forge weapons from such rare materials. And worse, after scanning the Banfield military's fleet, about 10,000 ships in total, he discovered something alarming. Most of the ships were non-functional. When the call came to fight, only 30% had actually been battle-ready. Lion was stunned they'd managed to win with such a crippled force, a real miracle, given the odds. Truth was, the pirates had seriously misjudged them. The rest of the Empire still saw Banfield as some backwards, poverty-stricken region, so of course, the pirates figured it would be an easy hit. And maybe they would have been right, if not for Lion and his unmatched skill in battle mechs. Even so, he understood one thing clearly: if the pirates regrouped and came back full force, their current fleet wouldn't survive the next round. Lion was fed up. More than 70% of their fleet was practically scrap metal. McGee floated an idea: maybe it was time to cut their losses and dump the useless vessels. Ryan didn't take kindly to that. He warned that scrapping the deadweight would tank their fleet strength numbers, making them look like easy prey to outsiders. Fair point, but keeping broken ships afloat wasn't free either. The upkeep alone was bleeding their budget dry, and Lion wasn't about to waste resources on junk. He backed McGee's idea. To ease Ryan's concerns, McGee added they could just invest in fresh, modern ships to replace what they scrapped. Besides, they had recently scored a haul of rare metals from some raided pirate ships. Selling those should more than cover the cost of building a new, more reliable fleet. In short, money wasn't the issue. While all that was being debated, Niaz was in the middle of showcasing her latest prototype, presenting it like a proud inventor unveiling a masterpiece. She was excited. This new model delivered a 7% boost in output, improved handling, and was easier to service. She insisted that if approved, her ships would take the Imperial fleet strength to new heights. Then came the turn of Lieutenant Ulyssia Morrisile from the 3rd Weapons Factory. Her presentation took a different turn. Her ship wasn't built for war. It was a luxury vessel masquerading as a cruiser. Think hotel in space, entertainment, relaxation lounges, even a golf simulator and a jacuzzi. Sure, Niaz's ships packed more of a punch, but they didn't exactly scream comfort. And oddly enough, that mattered. The Empire ended up placing their order with Ulyssia instead. Niaz protested, claiming her model outperformed the competition in every technical area, but Ulyssia had a rebuttal ready. Her ship could handle combat too, but the real strength came from a motivated crew. If soldiers could unwind with a drink or a hot soak after a mission, morale and performance would skyrocket. As the meeting ended and they exited the hall, Ulyssia couldn't resist rubbing her win in Niaz's face. But Niaz wasn't throwing in the towel. This battle might be lost, but she was far from done. She believed that in actual combat, her design would prove its worth. The catch? She'd entered her entire budget into the project. With the army rejecting her work, she was facing financial ruin unless she found a buyer crazy enough to take the entire batch off her hands. Odds weren't great. Who would invest in a model the military dismissed? Then a thought hit her: Liam. If that guy was willing to dump money into restoring ancient mechs, he just might be reckless enough to fund her dream. Meanwhile, the guide had been lounging back on Earth, feeding off human suffering like it was his favorite hobby. Truth be told, nothing could compare to the hell Liam was supposed to be enduring right now. The last time the Overseer had checked in on him, he'd stranded the kid in a backwater world with trash-tier parents who abandoned him and dumped a mountain of debt on his head. He fully expected Liam's little fiefdom to be in shambles. But when he finally took a peek, the place was thriving. That alone had him seething. His whole master plan to crush Liam's spirit was apparently a bust. Still, he had one last fail-safe. When Liam had requested a mentor to teach him swordsmanship, the Overseer had sent him Yasushi, a complete fake who had no business even holding a sword, let alone teaching someone how to use one. There was no way Liam could have picked up anything real from that guy. Elsewhere, in a quiet tavern, townsfolk were happily gossiping about how much better life had gotten under Liam's leadership. Everyone seemed genuinely glad to have him in charge. All the while, Yasushi sat off to the side, looking troubled. To him, Liam wasn't a hero, he was a damn monster. Yasushi knew he was a fraud. He'd spent months piling on impossible lessons, confident Liam would eventually break or fail. But somehow, the kid just kept pushing through. He even started pulling off feats Yosushi didn't think anyone could manage. The overseer, listening in, was baffled by what he heard and decided to investigate further. What he found left him stunned. Liam, deep in training, casually demolished a reinforced post without even touching it. The worst part? The overseer hadn't granted him any cheat codes or overpowered tricks. Everything Liam had, he'd earned himself. He just couldn't make sense of it. In a world stacked against him, Liam was winning. And Liam wasn't entirely sure how either. Being abandoned at 5 and shouldering impossible debt should have broken him. Yet, here he was, leading a prosperous territory, chasing his dreams. And ironically, it was all because of the overseer's original scheme. That bitter irony left a foul taste in the overseer's mouth. He hated every second of it. Trying to steady his nerves, he latched onto Yosushi's frustration, feeding off it until he felt more like himself again. With his cool restored, he began plotting once more. Liam's success made it all the more satisfying because the higher he climbed, the harder the drop. And the overseer would make damn sure the fall hurt. At that moment, Liam was in the middle of a meeting with Meiji, asking if there were any updates on the ship situation. Meiji explained that the Imperial military was upgrading its fleet and selling off older models for cheap. Outdated or not, Imperial ships were still beasts. Liam was immediately interested. But Meiji added a warning: there was a condition attached. They were required to bring on the entire crew that came with the ships. In reality, the Empire was using this deal to offload unwanted personnel along with outdated vessels. Hiring so many people would definitely drive up expenses, but Meiji calculated that their finances could absorb the impact. Besides, many of the crew were seasoned officers with critical experience. Bringing them in would significantly enhance Liam's military strength. Framed that way, the offer seemed too good to pass up, and Liam accepted without second thoughts. The guide overheard the exchange and sensed an opening. He figured he could twist the situation to suit his goal of dragging Liam into misery. All he had to do was maneuver a few self-righteous, rule-following types into Liam's forces. Eventually, Liam would be marching around like some dark lord, and it'd only be a matter of time before those noble types turned on him in the name of justice. Meanwhile, Yosushi was at home, groaning through a vicious hangover, wondering how his life had gone so off the rails. That's when Nia's voice suddenly called out to him. He snapped into action, frantically tidying up and slipping back into his act as the wise and serious teacher. Nia had been unsure of him at first, but after seeing Liam grow stronger under Yosushi's so-called guidance, she began to believe he might be the real deal. Yosushi was honestly shocked that she came to see him willingly. For a fleeting moment, he thought maybe he had a chance with her. But no, she was just there for information on Liam. What threw him off was how she phrased her questions. She wanted to know how to get Liam to listen to her pitch without coming off as pushy. Nervous about saying the wrong thing, she asked Yosushi how to get a guy in a good mood. He misunderstood immediately, assuming she was looking for tips on seduction. At the same time, he didn't want to seem like a pervert by being too direct. But when Nia pleaded with him, practically begging like her life was on the line, Yosushi caved. Without holding back, he spilled every last romantic fantasy and scenario he'd imagined, complete with vivid detail and emotional nuance. Nia stood frozen, silent for a few moments, and Yosushi panicked, thinking he'd gone way overboard. But then she calmly asked if stockings would help too. Yosushi was stunned. She didn't think he was a weirdo, but he quickly nodded and said stockings were definitely the right move. Nia sincerely thanked him and later that day arrived at Liam's residence wearing exactly what Yosushi had described, hoping to charm him into listening to her sales pitch. Liam might have been a little innocent, but he wasn't dumb. The moment Liam laid eyes on her, he could tell Nia was scheming something. And, as usual, it wasn't hard to guess, she clearly wanted him to make a purchase. Nia came clean about wanting to sell him the latest battleship model she'd put together, but Liam shot her down before she could get into the details. She pleaded with him to at least listen before rejecting her offer, but Liam wasn't interested. He didn't need to hear specs or promotions, he'd already acquired a load of second-hand ships from the Imperial fleet. He had no use for more. Undeterred, Nia launched into a passionate pitch, listing off stats and features that were admittedly impressive. Still, Liam told her to take the ships back to the Imperial Army if they were so great. That's when she admitted she'd already tried, and failed. She couldn't sell a single unit at the recent exhibition. Desperation kicked in as she begged him to take even a small batch, saying that even a few hundred ships would be a huge help to her. She even offered to help arrange a loan if cash was a problem, but Liam stopped her cold. The idea of going back into debt made his stomach turn. Nia was clearly at her limit now, so much so that she resorted to stripping right in front of him, hoping seduction might close the deal. Instead of tempting him, it just brought back bad memories of his past life, of how his ex-wife probably used the same tactics on his former boss. He knew Nia wasn't like that, but watching her stoop so low made him feel sorry for her. With a sigh, Liam figured the fastest way to end this awkward scene was to give in. He turned to Meiji and asked if there was room in the budget. Meiji confirmed they could swing around 300 ships. So Liam agreed to buy that number, and Nia lit up with gratitude, promising quick delivery. Unfortunately, in her excitement, she tripped and went face first into the floor. Liam had to admit, Nia was incredibly talented when it came to design and engineering, and she wasn't hard on the eyes. But sometimes, she was just a disaster. Out in the corridor, Nia was beaming as she barked orders to prep the 300 ships. Her logistics officer was stunned she'd managed to sell them, but Nia just winked and said it was all thanks to her irresistible charm. Back in the throne room, Liam was reclining as Meiji carefully cleaned his ears, feeling utterly at ease. Everything was running smoothly in his world. Not long after, Nia's delivered the full fleet of 300 warships she'd practically coerced Liam into purchasing. At the same time, the battleships he ordered from the Imperial military showed up. Meiji personally teleported over using quantum tech to hand-deliver the official receipt, and she wouldn't stop throwing around the word quantum as she demanded Liam's autograph. To mess with her, Liam jokingly pressed his thumb onto the refund bags, declaring it his exclusive quantum thumbprint. He figured he'd earned the right. Meanwhile, Yosushi lounged bitterly at home, still fuming over how Liam kept stealing Nia's attention away. He mentally replayed her manipulative antics, frustrated that she'd wasted her charms on that weird kid obsessed with dolls. The thought of what Liam might have done with the supposedly innocent Nia's only fueled Yosushi's outrage. He vowed to make Liam pay. As his fury reached its peak, the guide suddenly showed up, quietly feeding on Yosushi's festering negativity. Delighted, the guide reveled in the darkness and imagined how it might one day be used to crush Liam completely. Trusting that Yosushi's hatred would serve a greater purpose, the guide vanished into another dimension, off to harvest bad vibes elsewhere. Back on Liam's side, Nia's escorted him aboard one of the new battleships for a tour. He hadn't expected much in the way of elegance or design, especially from someone as dense as Nia's, but even so, he found the drab interior more disappointing than anticipated. She tried to argue that fancy designs were purely superficial and served no function during combat. Liam didn't care, he liked aesthetics, even if they were useless. Nia's knew it was pointless to argue, so they moved on to more important things, like how to operate the ship. She began explaining the basics, startup energy requirements, fuel swaps, and the usual routines. At one point, she even pitched a loyalty card program, promising discounts for future maintenance. Liam turned her down immediately. Then she led him to the ship's command throne, still wrapped in its protective plastic, and insisted she be the one to peel it off. Trying to seal the deal, she leaned in flirtatiously and tried to charm him into signing the final forms. She even went as far as offering to stamp it using her legendary assets, but Liam didn't even flinch, he'd already been down that road. Nia's was left puzzled, wondering if Liam might swing both ways or was simply immune to her appeal. Wanting to get it over with, Liam signed off. Before wrapping things up, though, Nia's made a request. She wanted ownership of those pirate ships Liam had recently captured. Liam immediately shot down the suggestion, stating outright that he planned to absorb the captured pirate ships into his own growing fleet. Nia's, persistent as ever, kept pushing for a share, practically begging for a piece of the prize. To diffuse the tension, Meiji suggested a compromise. Nia's could take a few of the ships, but in exchange, she'd be responsible for overhauling and enhancing the ones Liam kept. Liam was quick to approve, seeing as most of the pirate ships were barely space-worthy wrecks anyway. Nia's happily agreed, revealing her real motive wasn't the ships themselves but their unusual tech. According to her, pirates used all sorts of unregistered systems and alien components not native to the Empire. She was eager to dissect the tech and use it to refine her own creations. Before anything was finalized, Liam insisted on checking out the pirate ships himself and brought Meiji and Nia's along. They entered one of the more intact vessels, and Liam immediately noticed how widely different it was from standard Imperial designs. To his amusement, the control system included a literal wooden steering wheel, like something ripped out of a classic pirate legend. He was instantly enamored and declared then and there that his own battleship would feature a similar helm. Nia's, ever the rational engineer, launched into a tedious lecture on how absurd and impractical that idea was. Liam didn't care in the slightest and cut her off mid-sentence, declaring that style trumped functionality. Nia's gave up arguing and instead began gleefully scouring the ship, visibly thrilled each time she discovered a new device or system she didn't recognize. While she was absorbed in her tech hunt, Liam spotted a small glowing dog trotting off into another part of the ship. Intrigued, he followed it with Meiji in tow. The dog led them into a chamber that turned out to be the navigation room. As soon as Liam stepped inside, his weight triggered a hidden mechanism on the floor, and a glowing map appeared, charting the ship's previous courses. Meiji immediately got to work deciphering the data and discovered the ship had been raiding across Imperial territory for years. But what really caught her eye was that the vessel always returned to the same warp gate near Imperial borders. That gate, she explained, led to a dangerous frontier beyond the Empire's authority, a volatile region caught in ongoing conflict between the Empire and a rival nation. Liam immediately guessed that this gate might connect directly to the pirates' main hideout. After a quick analysis, Meiji locked down the location. She started explaining the technical difficulty of getting there, rambling about orbital anomalies and complex trajectory patterns, but Liam had already stopped listening. His mind was racing, imagining a legendary treasure hoard hidden at the end of the route. He was convinced that the pirates must be stashing their most valuable loot in some secret haven, just waiting for him to claim it. As always, Liam was off in his own little world, and Meiji decided it wasn't worth the effort to argue with him. Brimming with excitement, Liam eagerly announced that their fleet would embark immediately on a bold quest for treasure. Not long after Ghost got wind of the news, the debtor Liam had launched an attack and even crushed some of his forward units. Furious, Ghost rounded up the defeated crew members, intent on punishing them for tarnishing the pirate's image by losing to what he saw as a worthless noble. But before dealing with his disgraced subordinates, Ghost gave a direct order. He wanted Liam's head, and he wasn't taking chances. He mobilized his entire fleet and sent out all available forces. Meanwhile, Liam's group had just arrived at a massive warp gate leading to the pirates' hidden base. However, they were denied access right away. The Empire apparently charged a steep fee to use this particular gate, especially considering Liam wanted to teleport an entire fleet of 7,000 ships over such a vast distance. Liam casually claimed he'd settle the bill later, but the gate officer wasn't convinced. Annoyed, Liam asked Meiji if there was anyone trustworthy who could vouch for them, but they had no significant connections to speak of. He tried to reason with the officer again, explaining they were going to fight pirates, but that only made things worse. The official now doubted whether Liam would even make it back alive to pay anything at all. Liam hadn't brought any funds and had already spent several days reaching this point, so retreating wasn't really an option. Frustrated, he asked to speak with a superior, only to learn that the person he was speaking with was already the highest-ranking official on duty. Out of options, Liam lost his temper, ended the call, and quickly decided to try negotiating in person instead. While Liam was stuck arguing his case with the gate crew, trying to gain entry through the Parmonia gate without paying, Ghost's massive flagship arrived at the same location. Unlike Liam, Ghost had plenty of influence, and though he was clearly the antagonist here, he didn't need to ask anyone for permission. Wealth and power always won out. When Ghost contacted the gate staff, a familiar operator greeted him warmly, asking where he planned to head after passing through. Without much effort, Ghost declared he was heading straight for the Domus Gate. The Domus Gate was widely known to lead to an empty, worthless sector with nothing of value to offer a pirate like Ghost. Puzzled, the gate officer inquired why he'd bother going there, but Ghost snapped that it wasn't his concern and ended the conversation. He stated plainly that since he had the money, there shouldn't be any issue with his entry, immediately covering the required fee on the spot. Meanwhile, Liam arrived at the warp gate as well, thinking his usual charm would finally do the trick. With full confidence, he approached the gate officer and requested access, only to be told everything was fine, right before the officer hit him with a demand to pay the travel fee. Liam instantly resorted to flashing his noble title, assuring them he could get the funds easily, but the officer remained unfazed. When that approach failed, Liam changed gears and began begging, putting on a desperate act like it was a matter of life and death, but the officer didn't budge. Not stopping there, Liam began sobbing dramatically, bowing and insisting his mother was gravely ill and that this journey was urgent. The officer looked at the massive armada Liam had brought and replied flatly, "You brought thousands of ships to visit a sick mom. She must be really ill." When that story didn't land either, Liam quickly changed the tale again, saying he just wanted to show his mother his fleet one last time before she passed. Unmoved, the officer simply told him to return once he actually had the money, if visiting his mother was truly that important. Right then, the officer got a transmission about Ghost's clearance and walked away to deal with it, leaving Liam seething, shocked that his usual tactics weren't working anymore. Wandering around in irritation, Liam noticed the strange glowing doll once again and decided to follow it. In the warp control room, staff were monitoring Ghost's trajectory and immediately noticed that Liam's fleet was still parked in the staging area. It was clear this wasn't going to be a smooth encounter, but the real issue was that they had accepted payment from a known pirate without confirming his intended route, an oversight that could seriously backfire on them. So, in true bureaucratic style, they quietly exited the room for a sudden group break, hoping that if things went wrong, they could claim they weren't present at the time. Once the room was cleared, Liam wandered in and started looking around. Realizing he was in the control room for the warp gate, he noticed Ghost's ship near the Parmonia gate. He assumed the officer had secretly let him through out of guilt and cleared the room to hide it. But when Liam glanced at the terminal again, he saw the warp paths going the wrong direction. Thinking it was a mistake, he sat down to fix it. Without realizing it, he disrupted Ghost's warp path. However, since the warp process still appeared normal, Ghost didn't notice anything was off. Just then, Meiji called Liam and asked him to come back. When he did, she informed him that they had just received a formal letter of credibility, not from a noble, but from Nias herself, as a gesture of goodwill for being one of her most valued clients. A debt, now repaid in full. Liam flashed a smug grin, clearly satisfied. The officers had already been willing to stretch protocol, but now that they had official clearance, moving forward was going to be effortless. He gave Meiji the nod to activate the wormhole, and she complied without hesitation. Their voyage toward the Parmonia gate was underway. Luckily for them, Ghost and his squad had just abandoned their outpost, totally oblivious to what was approaching. Elsewhere, Ghost was getting visibly annoyed. He was supposed to reach Domus Gate in under half an hour, but the trip was dragging out far longer than expected. He glanced over at the crew member steering the ship, who looked just as anxious, but then a gateway came into view. Assuming they'd made it, they pressed on. However, unaware that Liam had tampered with the warp route, they stepped right into a trap. The instant they arrived, red alert alarms flared to life. An armada of Imperial warships was waiting, locked and loaded. They'd stumbled into a fortified battle zone. Game over for Ghost, massive win for Liam. Back with Liam, he finally reached the coordinates he'd been chasing. Maggie suggested double-checking their position, but Liam brushed it off, he already knew. Dozens of pirate ships drifted ahead in standby mode, practically announcing that they'd found the treasure stronghold. Maggie ran a scan and confirmed that none of the ships were active, they were vulnerable, completely unready for a fight. Liam acted instantly. He ordered Maggie to launch the offensive. She dispatched their warships, and Liam dropped into his mech. In moments, he opened fire, launching missiles across the enemy base. His signature rocket punch ripped through multiple pirate vessels at once, followed by the crushing force of his Avid crush move, which flattened everything in its path. Each hit landed with brutal precision, and Maggie soon reported that the enemy fleet had been wiped out. Still, Liam wasn't satisfied. He hadn't come just to wreck their defenses, he was here for the legendary pirate treasure. That was his true goal. He told Maggie to send in the mobile knights. Without wasting a second, she launched them toward the massive, rocky island ahead. Liam watched from his command ship, eyes blazing with anticipation. The hunt was about to begin, and he was all in. Then Liam and his team of armored mecha knights launch a full-scale assault on Treasure Planet, ripping open its exterior to breach the inner sanctum. Inside, a deranged scientist scrambles in panic as Liam's relentless offensive crushes the final remnants of the planet's defense systems. Racing to the command hub, he realizes the entire station is under siege and that all pirate vessels in orbit have already been obliterated. Simultaneously, Liam advances into the heart of the base, coming head-to-head with a band of pirates piloting heavily armed combat mechs. He tears through them without hesitation, and by the time his unit captain catches up, Liam has already cleared the area. The captain confirms they've locked down their section as well, and Liam orders the squad to keep moving forward and locate the treasure vault. Just then, Liam notices the glowing dog once more and chooses to follow it. The decision proves wise, as it guides him directly to the central control room. Upon his arrival, the scientist and his remaining staff immediately surrender. With everything falling into place, Liam demands that the scientist reveal the full extent of their treasure. Frankenstein, the scientist, responds with a cryptic question, asking what kind of prize Liam is seeking: gold, rare items, or the bizarre creatures once collected by the pirate leader Goes. Thinking the glowing dog might be one such creature, Liam presses for more information. Misreading Liam's curiosity, the scientist assumes he shares Go's twisted obsession with training living beings into submissive pets, and even offers to condition them to obey Liam. Completely confused by the disturbing proposal, Liam remains silent as the scientist insists on demonstrating what he means. Leading the group into his lab, he unveils his horrific creations, girls who've been disfigured through grotesque experimentation. One of Liam's soldiers immediately vomits at the sight. As the squad captain scolds the soldier for showing weakness, Liam steps forward, then abruptly halts when he sees one particular girl. The scientist gleefully explains that Liam clearly has a keen eye, because this was Go's favorite, his greatest achievement. He brags that she's the ultimate product of his work, but Liam's face darkens. Flashes of his own past, where he was treated like dirt, stripped of humanity, flood his thoughts. Something inside him breaks. Without a word, as the scientist continues his monologue, Liam lifts his weapon and executes him with a shot to the head. That's the end of Frankenstein. While scanning the twisted lab for anything salvageable, a chilling voice echoes through the room. It belongs to Christiana, the mutated girl with eyes in her hands. She softly asks who he is, and Liam calmly replies, introducing himself and declaring that the planet now falls under his control, as the madman who once ruled it is no more. Upon hearing this, Christiana breaks down into tears, daring to believe that her long nightmare might finally be ending. Through choked sobs, she pleads with Liam to end her suffering, and that of the others, convinced that after everything they've endured, there's no path back to normalcy. Yet Liam remains firm. He assures her that he intends to rescue every single one of them, and in return, he simply asks that they repay the kindness one day. With that, he walks away, instructing his soldiers to summon medics and begin moving the girls to the ship for immediate care. Christiana cries out once more, begging him to think it over, knowing deep down that what was done to them can't truly be undone. The squad captain looks at her with sympathy, but sticks to the directive. He gently tries to reason with Liam, pointing out that restoring the girls would take a complete biological overhaul, demanding rare alchemical formulas and top-tier medical professionals. The cost, he explains, would be astronomical, and in his opinion, the effort might not be worth it. But Liam shrugs off the concern, casually stating that he's in good spirits today, and that doing something good once in a while won't kill him. Right then, Meiji contacts him with an update. They've uncovered the actual treasure vault. Liam can't help but smirk at the timing, since they now have the resources to fund the girl's recovery. Meanwhile, Christiana continues to sob, her voice cracking as she reflects on all she's lost. She was once the Holy Kingdom's Princess Knight, a national icon, celebrated for driving back pirate invasions. But when she confronted Goes and his men, they outmaneuvered her, capturing her in a trap. From there, she watched helplessly as her homeworld was destroyed before her eyes. Her family had relied on the protective barrier provided by the Alliance, but it soon became clear that betrayal had taken root. The shield collapsed, and in a heartbeat, her planet was consumed in flame and ash. Her world was already in ruins, but the torment didn't stop there. After wiping out her home, Goes brought her and the survivors to what he mockingly called his treasure island. Though her squad was paralyzed with fear, Christiana clung to hope, reassuring them that help would come, that their fate wasn't sealed. When Goes finally made his appearance, Christiana stood her ground. She told him plainly that if he intended to kill her, he should do it then, because she'd rather die than be humiliated or broken. But Goes only chuckled, telling her that if death was what he wanted for her, it would have already happened. He made no effort to hide the fact that the only reason they were still breathing was because he intended to claim each of them as part of his own private collection. Wearing a sadistic grin, he declared that he was feeling generous and would let one of them go, but Christiana had to make the decision. Trapped and unsure, she chose the girl who appeared most terrified, thinking she might be saving her. But it was all a twisted trick. The second she spoke the girl's name, Goes handed her off to a deranged scientist with a hunchback and golem-like face, who gleefully dragged her off to serve as the initial experiment. The madman shifted into a monstrous, multi-limbed creature and began slicing into the girl as she screamed. Christiana lost her mind with grief, pleading for it to stop, but Goes just laughed coldly, saying that if he stopped now, the girl would surely die. Shattered, Christiana was forced to witness the girl she tried to save become a deformed shell of what she once was. Goes leaned close and murmured that this was merely the beginning, promising that Christiana's transformation would be even more exquisite. Trembling, she demanded to know how anyone could find joy in such cruelty. He replied simply, it gave him satisfaction. Goes said life had treated him like a joke, cursing him with a hideous appearance, so he turned his misery into a mission, corrupting beauty into horror. Watching others unravel fed his hunger. He strapped Christiana into the operating chair, and her will dissolved. She begged. She wept. She vowed anything, obedience, devotion, even servitude, if he'd just spare her, but Goes told her this was exactly what thrilled him most. He had saved her for last, not out of mercy, but because he wanted her downfall to be the most painful and prolonged. Then he ordered the golem-faced scientist to tear out her eyes and implant them in her palms, so she would always see the abomination she had become, even without a mirror. Her cries went unanswered, and just like that, Christiana was warped beyond all recognition, condemned to be his trophy. One by one, the rest of her companions were dragged in to suffer the same fate. Elsewhere, Lion had just returned home from a victorious pirate skirmish when Nias arrived at his estate. Having heard about his success at the pirate hideout, she immediately launched into her latest pitch. Her plan? Get him to buy even more warships to commemorate the win. Lion told her to cut it out with her constant cash grabs, but Nias countered that her fleet had played a key role in the mission, and with Lion scoring a huge payoff, it was only fair he reinvested in her weapons. She tried her usual flirtatious charms again, but Lion wasn't biting and sharply told her to shut her mouth. With neither seduction nor subtle threats working, she reminded him that she was the one who got him access to the warp gate in the first place, and that was enough to make Lion pause and listen, at least for now. Liam turns to Maggie and asks how many ships they could realistically afford using the treasure they've acquired. She runs the numbers and breaks it down, eventually revealing that, after subtracting all essential expenses, they still have the funds to purchase around 5,000 ships. Liam is left speechless, barely able to comprehend the figure when Nias suddenly bursts out of the room, shouting that she's going to prepare the paperwork for the 5,000 unit order immediately. Liam scrambles after her in a panic, trying to stop the maniac before she locks in such a massive transaction. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the palace, Yasushi is aimlessly wandering, brainstorming his next excuse to extract more funds from Liam. At that moment, he notices Nias passing by while on a video call, loudly boasting to a coworker that she just secured a major deal with Liam by sacrificing what little pride she had left. As usual, Yasushi jumps to the wrong conclusion, convinced that Liam is once again toying with Nias for personal amusement. This misinterpretation fires him up, which only pleases a hidden observer who's been lurking nearby, waiting for Liam to drift further into a darker mindset. Back on his chase, Liam is still searching for Nias when Yasushi intercepts him and calls him over. Without much warning, he drags Liam to the training area, and things quickly go sideways. Liam is blindfolded, handed an outrageously heavy sword, and ordered to prepare for another one of Yasushi's chaotic training sessions. This time, a swarm of drones surrounds Liam and begins pelting him with tennis balls at high velocity from all angles. Liam is utterly outmatched, getting hit left and right, and just when he thinks it can't get any worse, Yasushi increases the difficulty even more. Liam drops to the ground, groaning that there's no way he can defend himself against this onslaught with only a single blade. But Yasushi isn't having it. He barks at Liam to stop whining and figure it out. So, Liam decides to give magic another shot, only this time, he uses it purely for defense. He focuses his energy, molds it carefully, and suddenly manifests a sturdy barrier without breaking a sweat. The tennis balls bounce harmlessly off the shield-like insects against glass. Yasushi watches in disbelief as Liam calmly states that he's finally figured it out. Without delay, Liam fine-tunes the spell and redirects all the incoming balls right back at their sources, completely wiping out the entire drone formation in seconds. Pulling off his blindfold, Liam turns to Yasushi and proudly asks if he passed, but Yasushi, who's been hit by a few stray shots himself, is too stunned to reply. Instead, panic sets in as he realizes Liam might actually be a natural genius, and that it's only a matter of time before he uncovers the entire ruse. He's already dealt with corrupt officers and crushed pirate crews, so the moment he realizes Yosushi's been faking it all along, that's the moment Yosushi's neck's on the line. Figuring it's better to dip before things explode, Yosushi casually starts making his quiet escape. Liam notices and demands to know where he's headed, and Yosushi, scrambling to save face, claims there's nothing left to pass on. He tells Liam he's taught him everything he can, and from here, it's up to Liam to walk his own road, because the path of the sword never truly ends. Liam pushes back, insisting he's not ready and still wants to train, but Yosushi fires back, calling him a spoiled kid. Yosushi admits he's still learning too, that he's no perfect master, and if Liam stays glued to him like this, it'll only drag them both down. Then he spins around all dramatic and declares Liam has officially graduated. He's now a full-fledged practitioner of the Flash style, ready to carry the torch. It's on him now to spread their swordsmanship far and wide across the galaxy. Liam stands tall, swelling with pride, and promises to give it his all. And the moment he turns away, Yosushi vanishes like a shadow on the run. Meanwhile, Liam feels more fulfilled than ever. His debts are shrinking, his turf is thriving, he's shut down pirate threats, and even his mentor's given him the nod. So he looks to the stars and offers a heartfelt thanks to the one who led him here. The gremlin, who's been watching all this, immediately teleports to another dimension before Liam's pure good vibes can wipe him off the map for good. A few days go by, and Liam finds himself once again dissatisfied with his current lifestyle. He vents to both Brian and Amaji, expressing frustration over the injustices of his past life and his desire to make everyone in this world suffer for it, as the most wicked lord alive. Amaji, failing to grasp the true meaning behind his words, agrees that others should be repaid, believing he means financially. Liam dismisses her interpretation, casually promising to settle debts later. Right now, he's more focused on relishing his identity as a villainous noble, and to do that, he needs wealth, strength, and above all, a harem filled with stunning women. Power? Already covered, he's a certified master in swordsmanship. Next on the list is money. That's when Merchant Thomas shows up to congratulate him on his victory against the pirates. As a reward, Thomas brings exactly what Liam cherishes most, piles of gold. Liam is visibly pleased but remains cautious, knowing there's always a hidden cost. He questions Thomas, who reveals he needs his merchant fleet to travel through a perilous zone and hopes to borrow 100 ships from Liam's fleet for protection. Liam looks to Amaji for confirmation, and upon learning they can spare the vessels, he agrees, but reminds Thomas that next time, he better bring more gold. Later, Thomas rides through a major city within the Banfield domain alongside his assistant. He's stunned by how much the region has advanced in just a few years. Apparently, this progress is thanks to Liam funneling most of the tax revenue into its development. Thomas praises Liam, calling him a clever ruler, though he finds Liam's obsession with gold rather eccentric. Still, with gold being cheap, Thomas doesn't mind, hoping their mutually beneficial arrangement continues. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Liam hands Amaji his newly acquired gold and instructs her to melt it into coins, forge golden bathtubs, and fill those tubs to the brim. He then sits proudly on his throne, relishing the fact that he's finally accepted a bribe, just like a proper evil lord should, now comfortably surrounded by gold. With finances taken care of, all that's left for Liam to complete his indulgent lifestyle is women. He decides to establish a harem and starts redesigning a massive hall in the mansion to serve this purpose. His butler Brian doesn't question it anymore, he's long accepted that Liam always has some bizarre scheme in motion. Liam enthusiastically details his vision, a pool filled with wine, meats hanging from the ceiling, fruits piled high, and gorgeous women lounging everywhere. Amaji attempts to speak up, but before she can comment on the extravagance, Liam asserts that his desires are final. Ironically, that wasn't what Amaji had intended to say at all. She mentions that while she doesn't care if Liam squanders a fortune decorating a pointless room, what really bothers her is his idea to fill a pool with liquor. She warns him that the alcohol vapors could spread through the area, making it dangerous. When Liam hears there's a risk of fire or even an explosion, he begins to reconsider. Amaji doesn't stop there, she tells him that drinking from a pool like that is gross, and before he can argue, she starts explaining the science behind it all, which finally makes him grasp why it's a terrible idea. Brian finally joins in, giving his own reasoning for why Liam can't just hang meat in the room. After another drawn-out explanation, Liam begins to see how absurd his ideas are. Still, he insists on forming a harem, and surprisingly, both Amaji and Brian agree to it, telling him he can have as many women as he wants. Liam is caught off guard. He'd forgotten just how much status and power he holds. Most people of his rank already have harems, so it's only fair that he gets one too. Brian goes off again, ranting about how he thought Liam wasn't into women at all and had an unhealthy obsession with artificial dolls. He admits he was worried Liam wouldn't have an heir, especially with the constant danger of pirates. He presses Liam to start thinking about having children soon, but Liam brushes it off, more focused on gathering his harem. He decides on 100 women, but then learns that number is considered small in this society. Hoping for support, he turns to Amaji, who shocks him by saying he should aim for at least 1,000. Feeling overwhelmed, Liam almost calls the whole thing off and decides he'll just be with Amaji. But with Brian's relentless persuasion, he finally agrees to go ahead, with a catch. He declares he'll only pursue women who don't want him, since that fits the image of a proper villain. With that mindset, he heads into the city to meet his first target, only for her to instantly fall for him. This unsettles Liam even more, especially when she's wearing a nose balloon, currently a hot trend, which completely repulses him. He rushes back to his estate and immediately bans the accessory, saying it's a huge fashion disaster. Then, during a visit to the beach, he sees women dressed head to toe and realizes he needs to revolutionize the local fashion trends. He quickly adds this to his list of goals and tells Amaji to find some top fashion designers. But Amaji informs him that changing the fashion industry alone could wipe out their yearly finances. So Liam temporarily shelves the idea and instead decides to bring beautiful women from other worlds to his planet. Amaji protests, reminding Liam that his estate already boasts the most attractive women in the region working under him, so there's no need to seek out more. However, Liam insists he's not interested in them. His aim is to find women who have no interest in him whatsoever. Amaji then jokes that maybe Liam just prefers men and is too embarrassed to admit it, but that's not the truth. Wanting to disprove her assumption, Liam starts thinking about what he should do next. Meanwhile, Christiana has regained her original body thanks to advanced medical procedures unique to this world. It feels surreal to her, like a dream she never wants to wake up from. When the physician informs her that Liam covered the cost of the miraculous elixir used on her and the other captives to restore their bodies, she's overwhelmed. She recalls his words, "Someday, you'll need to return the favor." Now she wonders if she'll ever have the chance to find her benefactor and settle the debt. At the tavern, the villagers gather once again to talk about their lives and experiences, and their words about Liam are full of praise. They speak of how he battled the pirates, secured new ships, and used them to help grow the settlement. Now everyone is employed, so much so that free time is rare. The town is thriving, the people are content, he is truly a capable ruler. The guide sits there fuming. He had imagined Liam would fail in a city with no wealth or legacy. He had hoped Liam would be poor, ruling miserably, and in turn, the citizens would suffer too, spreading misfortune all around. Frustrated, the guide travels elsewhere, seeking out discontent. He approaches a captain who had been expelled from the Imperial forces and assigned to Liam's command. But instead of anger or bitterness toward Liam, the soldiers speak well of him. They say they prefer serving under Liam even more than they did in the Imperial ranks. They feel freer, more valued, and praise his leadership. Despite his youth, they recognize his wisdom. The guide is disheartened once more. He had hoped to spark rebellion and unrest, but instead found loyalty and admiration. To him, it's maddening. Meanwhile, Yasushi has fled far away, hoping to stay off Liam's radar for good. Yet, despite the distance, Yasushi remains uneasy, haunted by the possibility that Liam may one day discover the truth and come after him. As he broods over this, he catches a news broadcast praising Liam for defeating the pirates. During his public address, Liam credits his accomplishments to his mentor, Yasushi, the man who taught him the way of combat. When Yasushi hears this, another surge of anxiety washes over him. He's anxious that Liam might eventually come after him. Just then, the guide appears, noticing that Yasushi is being praised. When the guide initially sent Yasushi to Liam, it was with the hope that Yasushi would be a failure, making it impossible for Liam to gain anything useful, so the current outcome frustrates him. Meanwhile, Ghost flees back to his group of pirates after a major battle with the Imperial army. He reflects bitterly on how the tides turned against him. Fortune slightly favors him as he asks for updates on his fleet, and he's relieved that a few of his ships remain intact. He inquires about the situation at the Domos and how his men ended up serving the Imperial army rather than Banfield. He concludes that he must have been betrayed during the Domos incident and begins plotting retaliation. At that moment, the guide shows up. He finally sees a chance to steer someone against Liam. He reminds Ghost that Liam was the one responsible for the pirates' destruction, and that if Ghost wants revenge, Liam should be his target. Taking the guide's words to heart, Ghost resolves to strike back at Liam once his ships are restored. Meanwhile, oblivious to all this, Liam relaxes at home, surrounded by maids attending to him, from preparing meals to cooling his food. Still, he feels something is missing. Liam believes that if he's to truly be a villainous noble, he needs to act more wicked than he currently does. Amaji senses his restlessness and asks what else he desires. She suggests several ideas to satisfy him, but he declines them all. When she proposes that maybe he wants more wives, he turns the question on her, asking if she'd be okay with that. She reminds him she's an android, without emotions, and her only purpose is his happiness. Despite her reassurances, he doesn't want her to be hurt by having multiple partners, even though she insists it's impossible. She then offers the idea of adding more robotic helpers, but mentions Brian wouldn't approve. Liam doesn't care about Brian's opinion. The next morning, Amaji briefs him on their finances, how much debt they've cleared and how the interest rates are dropping due to timely payments. Though Liam accepts their current stability, his thoughts remain conflicted. His ambition isn't to be a respectable noble, but a feared tyrant. Still, he understands he must manage the territory wisely if he's to earn enough income to settle their obligations. Amaji questions what kind of evil ruler he truly wants to be. He confesses that he dreams of hiking taxes and draining the will of the population. She argues it would cripple their economy and disrupt the cash flow needed for debt repayment. He reluctantly agrees with her logic, though he brushes off her reasoning as too sensible. Still, as he reflects on his current life, and Amarji always being by his side, he decides to stay the course for now until their debts are fully paid. To maintain order, he had Amarji create multiple android maids who manage the household. 3 of the robots grumble about having nothing meaningful to do around the castle, ending up tidying up already clean areas. One robot shares that she altered her hairstyle to resemble another's, and was surprised when Liam could still tell them apart despite their identical builds. She treasures the moment when Liam recognized her, even saving the footage as a memento. The others consider imitating her move, but Amarji steps in with a stern warning. She erases the footage and reminds them that robots are prohibited, and pursuing Liam's attention might harm his social standing. One of them boldly questions whether Amarji's closeness to Liam also risks damaging his image. Amarji concedes that it does, but insists she has no choice, claiming it's what Liam wishes. After she leaves, the robots begin to suspect she simply wants to keep Liam to herself. Suddenly, Brian rushes in with urgent news. He reveals that Ghost has declared war on the city. Gathering the advisors, he outlines the situation and the enemy's outrageous demands: wealth, attractive men, and beautiful women, as the price for peace. Liam appears troubled. Brian assumes it's out of concern for the city, but Liam is more interested in Go's villainous flair, the very image he dreams of embodying. He compares their weaponry and realizes he's outgunned. He could go into battle, but the bounty on Go's isn't tempting enough to justify the risk. As the discussion continues, time halts, and the guide reappears. Sensing Liam's hesitation, the guide urges him toward conflict, emphasizing that defeating Go's will bring both wealth and prestige. Believing the guide has his best interests in mind, Liam decides to go to war, much to the astonishment of his advisors. What outcome awaits in this major battle? Meanwhile, the guide resumes his usual task of feeding on people's negative emotions scattered across daily life. Today, he visits a bustling croissant cafe, where a rare papaya mango flavor is on sale. A girl in line anxiously awaits her turn as everyone ahead buys out the specialty pastry. Silently, she pleads for someone to leave just one behind. But customer after customer grabs multiple, 2, 4, even 6, leaving her heart sinking. With only one person ahead and 2 croissants remaining, she hopes for mercy. Yet the last customer grabs both, crushing her hopes of savoring her desired treat. She turns away in sorrow, disbelief etched across her face. Her ruined day becomes the guide's delight as he consumes her anguish, savoring it like a gourmet dish. Just as the girl is about to walk away, the baker suddenly announces that a fresh batch of croissants is out of the oven. Her mood lifts instantly, and she turns back with delight, much to the frustration of the guide, who didn't anticipate this detour. He decides to abandon the idea of snacks and move on to the real objective. Watching Liam fall apart. Elsewhere, Brian contacts Amarji and becomes alarmed after discovering that space raiders have begun an assault on their world. Amarji urges him to stay calm and insists that Liam was right to stand his ground. She explains that while the odds of Liam winning are only 3.8%, she would still take that chance over agreeing to Ghost's conditions. Based on Ghost's ruthless record, surrender would surely lead to the planet's destruction. So even a slim chance is better than none. Brian reluctantly agrees, though he doubts Liam can pull off a victory. He laments that if Liam had been born a century earlier, he might have had a real shot at overcoming his opponents. Meanwhile, Liam remains sure of his success, believing that the guide is still on his side. He dreams of the wealth he'll gain from the victory and feels nothing but optimism, feelings that the distant guide loathes. The guide, now disgusted, wishes for Liam to be seized by the pirates and delivered to Ghost as a personal captive. In his mind, once Liam is broken down and subjected to daily torment, the anguish will produce all the despair he craves. From what he knows, Ghost's forces are evenly matched with the Imperial armies, making him confident that Liam's loss is certain. He pins the blame on Liam for putting faith in someone like him. He ridicules Liam, saying he's every bit the gullible fool he once was in another life. The guide imagines the moment Liam's admiration turns to loathing, when his hopeful grin decays into bitterness, and his will collapses. That's when the guide will finally consume the anguish he's been starving for. Impatient for the moment to arrive, the guide eagerly departs, ready for the suffering to begin. The focus then returns to the battlefield, where Ghost stands. He loudly offers double the reward for anyone who brings Liam in alive, adding how excited he is to make Liam his next personal amusement. Ghost's aide asks if he's grown fond of the boy, but Ghost dismisses the idea, saying he's simply seeking fresh amusement. He reveals his plan to wreak havoc on Liam's people and twist them into monsters after the conflict ends. Meanwhile, Liam's followers, who once doubted his strange behavior, are beginning to see that their young master isn't joking around. His skill in politics is genuine, and he's also no slouch with a sword. Liam hears about the bounty placed on him and becomes excited at the thought of seizing the pirates' riches, expecting they'll come for him soon. However, even after 3 slow and uneventful days, nothing major occurs, except at the battlefront, where Liam's second-in-command reports that their troops are being pushed back by the sheer number of enemy pirates. Liam finds himself too bored for games and wants to leap into the action, but just as he's about to issue commands, his communication system is hacked, cutting off all contact with his forces. At that very moment, a swarm of pirate vessels appears overhead, causing widespread panic among his crew. Yet Liam stays composed, calling the tactic foolish since only 500 ships were sent, splitting their main force. Amarji quickly identifies the opponent's true aim, to disrupt Liam's formation and create a weak spot to exploit. She explains that the fleet Go's sent is nothing but sacrificial units. A subordinate then reports that these 500 ships are manned not by pirates, but by Imperial soldiers who were forced to surrender and join Go's side. While it makes sense that they'd comply to survive, Amarji still argues against sparing them, as their loyalty is now questionable. Despite his hesitation, Liam ultimately decides to destroy all 500 ships. When Go's receives word of this, he's impressed, but also notices the momentary instability it caused in Liam's lines and seizes the opportunity to launch a full assault. As his fleet advances, Liam's forces begin a calculated retreat, keeping a precise distance. Believing Liam is running away, Go's pushes his fleet forward, only for the leading ships to detonate, revealing that the battlefield was covered in magically concealed mines. Go's is stunned that he was fooled by such a basic trap, but confident in his numerical advantage, he orders his fleet to continue through the danger. Liam is informed of this and also that the front lines of Go's fleet consist of former Imperial soldiers, meaning Go's is using them as fodder while protecting his actual pirate crew. As the pirates draw closer, Liam's team focuses on defending his ship, throwing themselves in harm's way to protect their leader, but Liam doesn't want that. Liam makes it clear he won't let a single subordinate fall under his command. Once his intentions are known, he boldly states that he will destroy every single enemy on the spot. As long as he lives, he swears no hostile ship will set foot on his planet. Preparing to enter his mobile night unit, he appoints Amarji as his second-in-command. With fast, calculated battle strategies, Amarji takes charge of coordinating the fight, and Liam entrusts the rest to her, as she wishes him success. Backing out now isn't an option for him. Having resolved to handle the confrontation alone, he boards his ship, preparing for combat. As instructed, Amarji heads to the pirate vessel to initiate Liam's launch. She orders the knights to deploy the remaining ships, but her command is met with hesitation. Why should humans follow orders from a machine? She attempts to reason with them, insisting that Liam is determined to face the battlefield alone. Leaving him unsupported would be a death sentence. If they don't act, he'll be completely exposed and easily eliminated. She tells them her allegiance isn't with a nation or its people, it's with Liam alone, and she'll do anything to protect him. This declaration stuns the knights. How could a machine display more loyalty than them? Their doubts melt away, and they pledge their lives to defend Liam. Taking command of the pirate fleet, they gear up for war. Amarji successfully launches Liam's ship, the Atha. Liam soars ahead, bolstered by the guide's words that the battle is already won, and that he'll face no obstacles. As he enters warp space, he hopes to ambush Ghost and his forces. But the moment he arrives, the enemy detects the breach and prepares to counter. He dives into the center of their fleet, weapons drawn, sword, pistol, and blaster at the ready. Confident in victory, he fights with everything he has, while the troops behind him put their lives on the line to guard him. He expected this to be an easy victory, but will it go the way he planned? I can't help but dread what Ghost might do to him if he's captured. Liam's optimism falters when his gun runs dry. Shock hits him, he hadn't thought this far ahead. It was unrealistic to think he could wipe out 30,000 ships alone. He starts to pull back, trying to regroup, when suddenly, he's struck. An enemy has broken through. But Liam finds a strange satisfaction in finally facing a worthy opponent. He unsheathes his sword and engages. During the clash, his foe is taken aback. The knight notes Liam's impressive swordsmanship and asks which academy taught him. Liam proudly proclaims that he has mastered the way of the flesh. The knight, confused, admits he's never heard of such a technique, which infuriates Liam. How could he not know about his master's teachings? Liam insists it's the greatest skill ever, mocking the knight's lack of knowledge. But the knight counters, saying he has faced warriors from top academies, and if even he hasn't heard of the way of the flesh, then it likely doesn't exist. To prove its power and spread its reputation, Liam strikes him down, killing him. After ending the knight's life with satisfaction, Liam suddenly regrets it. He thinks it would have been smarter to let him live. That way, the man could have spread tales of the way of the flesh, showcasing Liam's strength to the world. He then decides that from now on, he will spare a few elite fighters, wounded but alive, so they can tell everyone about him. We'll see how well that plan works. Ghost and his pirate crew still mock his strength. They can't understand how someone from a fallen noble family has the wealth and firepower to attack them so aggressively. They keep taunting him about being poor, which infuriates him more. Liam yells at them to stop calling him that, warning that the insult only makes him want to kill them all. Using the way of the flesh repeatedly, he slashes through the enemy knights and survives the assault. Suddenly, he gets an alert from the left flank of his ship. It's been destroyed. He realizes his current ship isn't durable enough to support the power of the way of the flesh. Still, he puts that thought aside for now and continues the battle. One of his foes makes a move against Avid, who retaliates. But the tides turn, and Liam finds himself at a disadvantage. His enemies are overwhelming, and being a lone powerhouse isn't enough. His soldiers aboard the ship also start to panic, doubting they can hold out much longer. Amaji then informs them that their success probability has dropped from 3.8% to just 1.2%. Just as things seem hopeless, a new vessel appears to support him. The new pilot is Christina, returning from her journey stronger and more powerful than before. Amaji immediately starts working on a plan to ensure victory. She contacts the 3rd and 7th Weapon Forces to secure additional armaments. Christina's arrival lightens the load on the battlefield. She faces off against Ghost and his pirates. But this isn't just combat for her. It's deeply personal, an act of vengeance for all the pain they caused. She declares that she won't just defeat them, she wants to annihilate them. She supports Liam, but he's far from satisfied. After all, he is the Dark Lord, the most powerful figure wherever he stands. He despises anyone else stealing the spotlight. Immediately, he suits up in powerful new gear. Wearing armor with a rocket punch, he charges into Ghost's stronghold. Everyone watches in astonishment. Christina, amazed, comments on how incredible he is. And I agree, he truly is. Ghost trembles in fear aboard his vessel. He can't believe one man has wiped out his entire fleet. Amaji then announces that their odds of success have jumped to 83%, thanks to Liam breaching their defenses. Could this be the final push for victory? Liam keeps cutting through the pirate knights with ease, commenting on how effortless it is to earn some quick money by collecting bounties. Nearby, the female knight Christiana becomes completely starstruck, declaring she'll worship him every day, mind, body, and soul. But her admiration flips the second a few pirate knights dare to rush her. In an instant, she transforms into a feral, bloodthirsty maniac, mowing down enemies like a beast unleashed. Liam, meanwhile, doesn't spare her a glance. His mind is locked on wiping out the pirates and getting payback on the ones responsible for the torment in his past life. Just then, Meiji warns him of another wave of enemy knights descending from above, and without missing a beat, Liam launches himself toward them. The pirates retaliate with a barrage of missiles, but Liam activates the shield technique he mastered during Yosushi's relentless training, deflecting everything thrown his way. As he crushes the opposing fleet, his troops begin to feel overwhelmed with respect. They reflect that if Liam hadn't been born into nobility, he'd just be a normal teenager. He started from nothing, a broke noble in a forgotten backwater, abandoned by his family, yet he fought to change his own fate. These soldiers, who were once dismissed from the Imperial Army for calling out corruption, now realize how fortunate they are to serve under someone like him. They're touched because, until now, they'd never seen a noble personally face death for his people instead of hiding safely behind others. Back on the battlefield, Liam nears the pirate command ship. But when he attempts to strike it, the escort vessels activate their barriers, blocking his attack. He can't even teleport past them, the pirates have triggered a jamming field. Frustrated, Liam grits his teeth, but Meiji quickly steps in to assist. She issues a full-speed advance, ordering all units to target the shield generators. The command spreads across every allied ship, and as soon as they're in range, the entire fleet unleashes a coordinated barrage aimed at the enemy's defenses. The protective field fractures, and before it can stabilize, the flagship launches a counterstrike that destroys the ships powering the barriers. This creates a gap, and Liam charges through before the enemy can respond. Captain Goes yells for his team to strengthen the shields, but Liam, along with Christiana's forces, are already flooding into the fray. Before the pirates can fully restore their barrier, Liam slips inside and starts tearing them apart from within. Goes is taken aback when he realizes someone is wiping out his forces using an old model Mecha Knight. His surprise quickly shifts to fury once he learns the same outdated machine had also raided his treasure storage planet. Before he can react further, his aide brings more bad news. Liam's remaining fleet is rapidly advancing, and their Mecha Knights are starting to overpower Go's defenses. When asked what to do next, Goes decides his ego isn't worth his life, even though the idea of being seen as a coward gnaws at him. He orders his aide to ready an emergency getaway and tells him to alert only the top officers, leaving the rest behind to serve as decoys. Without hesitation, Goes commands all ships to unleash full firepower on the approaching enemy units, regardless of friendly casualties. He insists they take out every enemy, even if it means striking their own forces. But Liam easily dodges the barrage and closes in on the lead pirate ship. Panicked, Goes tells his aide to initiate the warp, but it's too late. Liam reaches the flagship in time. He activates his plasma cannon and fires a devastating shot, tearing the ship apart and sending Goes sprinting toward the escape pods. Just as he gets close, part of the ceiling collapses in flames. Liam targets and eliminates any pirate trying to escape, determined to make an example of them. At that moment, Liam's squad arrives to back him up, and he announces that they're boarding the flagship to find and capture Goes. One of the officers warns that the pirates might destroy the ship themselves, but Liam doubts they'll go that far. To be safe, he launches several guided rocket fists into the air, directing them to sever the ship's vital systems and render it useless. Afterward, he exits his mecha and leads his team into the enemy vessel with confidence. As they sweep through the ship, Liam notices pirates hiding behind a sealed door. His troops immediately open fire and eliminate them. The fallen enemies turn out to be wearing advanced stealth armor that standard sensors couldn't detect. Liam is pleased by the discovery. It confirms Ghost has valuable resources, and soon it'll all be his. Pressing forward, Liam and his team suddenly come face to face with a mercenary group. Their leader mocks Liam, bragging that they once worked for high-ranking nobles and that Liam doesn't stand a chance. Unfazed, Liam casually walks toward them, and in an instant, the mercenaries fall, sliced apart before anyone even sees him draw his weapon. His soldiers look on in awe, quickly clearing out the last of the resistance as they push toward the control center. They manage to wipe out all the high-ranking officers, but Ghost's right-hand man quickly throws in the towel. He pleads that he was merely a pawn in Ghost's plans and tries to win Liam's favor by offering to lead him to the treasure room, though he admits he doesn't have the means to unlock it. Liam, intrigued, tells his team to spare the man. Sensing a chance to survive, the assistant immediately starts groveling, laying on the praise and pretending he wants to switch sides. He claims he now wants to follow a capable noble like Liam, but before the words fully leave his mouth, his head is already rolling on the floor. Meanwhile, far away, the guide watches the situation unfold, visibly rattled. He never thought Liam had any chance of winning this battle, and now he's panicking, terrified that Liam's gratitude might fall on him if things end in victory, something he sees as a death sentence. Trying to avoid that nightmare, the guide decides to break his own code and interfere directly with the mortal world. He grants Ghost a forbidden power meant to tip the odds. At that moment, Ghost is stumbling through the wreckage, consumed by panic with Liam right behind him. He knows it's over. There's no running, no surrender, and no way he'll give up his treasure just to survive. Then, like a sudden jolt, the guide's power surges into him, filling his body before he can even react. The guide appears behind him and calmly tells him this is his one chance to take revenge and escape death. Ghost grabs the opportunity like a lifeline, and in seconds, the power rips through him. Strength, chaos, and fury surge through his veins, transforming him into something monstrous. The guide grins wickedly, certain that Liam won't even leave a scratch on this beast. But the cost of unleashing such power is high, and the guide decides to remove himself from time. He rips open a rift, steps into it, and vanishes, unaware that a faint orb of golden light has slipped out behind him. The orb drifts silently for a few seconds before reshaping itself into a glowing golden dog. Back aboard the ship, Liam and his squad are still clearing out the last pirates when Liam suddenly stops in his tracks. He could swear he just saw a golden dog glowing faintly in the distance, but in a blink, it's gone. His men scan the area and report nothing unusual, but Liam remains unsettled. He remembers a dog from his past life, one of the few creatures that ever stayed loyal to him. The memory strikes a chord deep inside, and with a strange sense of peace, he begins walking in the direction where the glowing dog vanished. While making his way through, Liam notices a glowing golden cube drop nearby. Without a second thought, he snatches it up and immediately claims it as part of his haul. He starts going on about how gold will always be the ultimate treasure when that same golden dog from earlier zooms by again. Trusting his gut, Liam bolts after it. The dog leads him straight into what looks like a solid wall, but something feels off. He orders his team to open fire, and sure enough, the wall crumbles away, revealing a hidden chamber filled with ancient-looking items. The squad starts celebrating, thinking they've just uncovered a stash of priceless artifacts. But Liam isn't convinced, it all looks a bit too polished to be real. Still, one sword in particular catches his eye. After a few test swings, he claims it as his own. That's when a frantic message comes through from his unit. They're being ripped apart by some unstoppable monster. Nothing's working. Guns, explosives, nothing. Ghost is tearing through everything, brushing off every attack like it's nothing. Now he's demanding to face Liam directly. The squad tries to warn Liam to stay back, but it's too late. Ghost grabs some of them and looks ready to torture his way to Liam, but Liam arrives just in time and strikes him from behind. The hits barely register though, and even Liam admits this guy's built like Mithril. But when he draws the new sword from the vault, everything changes. With one precise slash, he severs Ghost's hand clean off. Ghost screams about his weapon being stolen, but Liam calmly replies that everything here belongs to him now. Then, with cold precision, he cuts off Ghost's other arm to avenge his fallen men. Thanks to some strange force, Ghost regrows his arms into writhing tentacles and lunges again, but Liam slices through them like paper. He's genuinely impressed by the sword's power. More soldiers rush in to protect him, but Ghost's focus is already locked on Liam. With his limbs restored once again, Ghost goes in for another strike. Liam doesn't even blink, he steps aside and launches a vicious counterattack. This time, the blows are so clean, so lethal, that Ghost finally feels it, fear. Real fear. Looking up in disbelief, Ghost drops to his knees and starts pleading for his life. He offers all the treasure, just begs not to be killed. Liam steps forward, plants a foot on his chest, and coolly says the treasure's already his. As for Ghost, he's just one more name on Liam's kill list. Liam states bluntly that he's turning Ghost into the Empire to collect the reward. Ghost panics, claiming he's got treasure stashed away that's worth far more than the bounty. Liam just scoffs and tells him to save that sob story for the capital's interrogators, maybe they'll be more interested. Frustrated, Ghost lashes out one last time. But Liam easily sidesteps the attack and slices through his leg, sending him crashing to the ground. Soaked in fear and desperation, Ghost starts begging again, but Liam just looks irritated. He still plans to haul him in alive until his squad captain arrives and warns him, taking Ghost back in one piece might be too risky, considering how many soldiers he's already killed. Liam argues that the bounty's bigger for a live capture, but the captain shuts that down. Scumbags like Ghost fetch the same price, dead or alive. That settles it. Liam finishes the job. Afterwards, he heads back to his ship, underwhelmed by how easy it was. He lets the cleanup crew handle the rest and decides it's time to relax, Maggie by his side and a win in his pocket. That wraps up episode 11. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.